Good morning. On today's section of The Professor Helps, I want to talk to you about times when it sucks and when it is okay to not be fine. So, I've talked about this a lot. I felt like it was really important to come back and circle back on this topic because lately I've had some friends who have been through some really rough times. And some of those people that I'm talking about are people like myself. I've been having a lot of bad times, a lot of rough times, a lot of difficult times. And as I said before, life can be pretty lifey, full of life. Job layoffs, death, health scares, health that has caused people to have bad health and people to die. And no one of those things is more important or less important than the other. And if you're experiencing difficulty, you need to know that most people around you are also experiencing difficulty. They're just not talking about it very much. I heard a great quote not too long ago that said, just because I don't complain about it doesn't mean that it's not a heavy load to carry. And I think that that's really, really important. I am all for being positive. In fact, among my friends, I'm known as the spin doctor or the Pollyanna, but I'm definitely a positive force, which is great for being the professor who inspires, motivates, and helps. And there's also times when things just suck, and calling that out is just as important, if not more so, than being positive and bucking people up. I think that it is so important to sit with somebody in the suck. Brene Brown is famous for saying, sit in the suck and be with somebody. And it's really difficult sometimes to do that because we all want to make things better for people. And it's really awkward to sit with somebody who's lost their job or lost their husband or lost their father or lost their aunt or lost their uncle. And it's really hard because you really want to cheer them up. You want to do anything to paint that situation with a yellow shiny brush, if you're me. And I think that it becomes really much more important to say, how are you? What helps? What can I do to support you? And I want to take a minute now to say that, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't look on the bright side. I think that looking on the bright side is an important part of the equation. But it's exactly that. It's part of the equation. You can't have a rainbow without rain. You have to realize that there's going to be, into a little life, some sadness will fall. And it's really important to treat that with the respect and the dignity that it deserves. And to say to somebody, well, at least you have a job, or at least you have your health, or at least blah, blah, blah. And Brene Brown talks about this. She says that most comforting things do not start with the words, at least, because you're minimizing the thing that bothers them. And sometimes it's really okay to just say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry this happened. And you can hug people, and you can call them, and you can text them. And a lot of times people won't know what they need, especially in the case of a death, because, depending on the relationship, depending on whether it was estranged or if it was close, death hits people in very different ways. For example, my Papa Joe died in August, and he was very important to me, and it comes up on me at the most unexpected times, much like right now. And it's just one of those things where I'm always going to mourn him a little bit because he was so important. And at the same time, it's also wonderful because it helps me to know that he will always be with me, because in mourning him, I remember him. Just like my friend John Olmo, who died many, many years ago of Lou Gehrig's disease. And it's kind of interesting how one loss reminds you of another loss. And then you kind of get into a little bit of it's really, really sad. And that happens. And I think that it is just as important to talk about the stuff that sucks when it sucks. And it does suck for these people to be gone. So saying, well, at least you had somebody you loved in your life, it does not help. It doesn't. And whoever told you that it does is wrong. So I'm going to be the one to tell you, when somebody is upset, or if that person is you, let yourself feel what you feel. Let yourself feel your feelings. And, go see a therapist if you need one. Go talk to somebody about it if you need one. Listen to, have somebody with a sympathetic ear. And if you have someone telling you, buck up and don't be so upset, then that might not be the person to be around. Now, it may be that later that is the perfect person for you to be around. But in the beginning, what you need is people to hug you. And you need people to, love on you and say, this really sucks and I'm here for you. And any variety of things. But try your best to avoid platitudes. I know it's hard because they're platitudes for a reason. We use platitudes because they're comfortable for the person saying them. But consider the next time somebody tells you something awful, saying these words, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me, because it represents a level of trust for someone to tell you how difficult things are for you. Because if you think about it, how often do people talk about what bothers them? They post on social media about how great their life is, their new car or their perfect meal, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do think that sometimes we get so obsessed with that posting that we don't talk about what's really bothering us. We don't talk about the things that matter. And I think that that's the thing to be wary of. I want you to have your perfect cup of coffee and I want you to post that picture. I also want you to talk about today wasn't so great. I need a little silly meme to make me feel better. I've been seeing a lot more of that on social media, and I've been trying my best to encourage it when I see it. And when people need to be encouraged, I try my best to encourage them. And there are times when something just sucks, like last week when a bunch of my friends and former colleagues got laid off. That is a sucky, scary situation, no matter what the business decision was, no matter how it was explained to people. It's horrible and it sucks. And there is a time for the conversation of, eventually this is going to be good. That time is for later. Yes, I believe you need to network and talk to people and get out there as quickly as you can. At the same time, you go to a networking event, you put your best face on and you go network like crazy. Then you go home and you cry and you eat ice cream and you give yourself a bubble bath and you drink some wine and you do things to cope and you give yourself self-care, because it's so important. So there's room for both. And I think that when things suck, calling it out is just as important as trying to say how much better it's going to be. That is the Professor Helps. So before you go, make sure that you hit subscribe. These messages come out every single Wednesday. Usually they're going to be before 7 a.m. And it's to inspire you, motivate you, things that I'm thinking about. And my goal is to help one person every day live a more inspired, realized, authentic life. So if you like this, go ahead and share and also subscribe. I'll see you next week. This is the Professor, signing off.